WAB for a second. I'm like, what do you mean he's running for WAB? Washington 6. Joining us on the program right now is Jesse Young, who's running for Congress out of Washington 6. Hello, sir.
Hey, good morning. It's nice to be with you.
Republicans, not too popular in the state of Washington, are they?
Well, it depends on what part of the state you live in, but
Seattle?
generally on the West Coast, yeah. No, not
Olympia?
really. Yeah. Well, fortunately, I don't have those parts in my district, so we have a little bit more of an opportunity out here.
It's funny when you talk to people who represent what we consider blue states, but it seems like they really aren't blue states so much as concentrated blue cities that seem to control the state, kind of like Chicago, Cook County, and Illinois.
Yeah, well, that's very true. In fact, in this country, the guy that has been here since the year I was born has kind of made it a black hole. No one's really looked out here, and it's been quite a pleasant surprise for a lot of people. Once he decided to retire, they went, wait a second, there's a lot of conservatives out in this district, and it's given us quite an opportunity.
Well, it's amazing to me that when you talk to people who complain about, okay, let me put it like this. You listen to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She says, if it were up to Republicans running for Congress, we'd all be driving foreign cars. Then it turns out, according to the Hill newspaper, she's driving an Infiniti FX35. You can hear Democrats all day tell you how we should save the American auto industry, and then you'll be loath to find an Obama sticker on an American car. And yet you go into states like Washington or Illinois, even New Jersey, and you talk to any normal human being about taxes, the size of government, immigration, and you get by and large center-right opinions, and then you watch the results, and all of a sudden they're blue again.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm proud to drive a Ford truck, number one. I would say that probably the biggest reason for that is, our opposition on the left is generally better at framing the talking points than it seems like a lot of our traditional candidates. That's always kind of been a big stickler of mine, is that it seems like we get a lot of people out here that let the Democrats or even Wasserman Schultz get up here and they'll frame it in a 30-second soundbite, and then you get an opponent that tries to fit a 5-minute thesis in a 30-second answer, and all of a sudden people are voting blue, and it drives me nuts, to be honest. I mean, when you can actually reach people with real experience and actually take the time to frame your answers in a way that people can understand, it's amazing how quickly they can come to your side.
Now, how old are you?
Sir, I'm 36.
36. Okay, so you'd be one of the younger people on the Hill. Your campaign motto is Constitution First. I like it. I think when you talk to a lot of people about the Constitution, you're dealing with people by and large who are just too busy to understand it.
Well, it's interesting. You wouldn't believe how much of a headache that slogan gave me when I actually started making some inroads with the party. They're like, whoa, I'm not sure that you should keep that up there. And, of course, I've always had that slogan, but I always take a very professional approach to it. And when you lead with professionalism and tell people, hey, it's not just about being right about the issues, it's about being effective and right on the issues at the same time. And then let me tell you how putting the Constitution first and prioritizing it is going to help me to do that. It's amazing. They'll start to listen. You can come up with some very articulate answers, and then you start to lead with solutions instead of R&D bomb throwing. Man, you can make a real impact very quickly. And I firmly believe in putting the Constitution first. It's what's going to get this nation back on track to grow jobs, to get our financial house in order. Go figure. You follow the Constitution, and fiscal responsibility follows.
It amazes me how when we look at the Constitution and members of Congress or the Senate, and people will pick up the phone and call their congressman and say, I got a pothole here. Okay, call your mayor, call your county legislature. It fascinates me how, and I did a special for this on TV where we put a partisan Republican, a libertarian, a former liberal, and a member of the log cabin Republicans in the room. We started talking about purview of government, our personal philosophy, what actually is a government power. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes there are things we want the government to do that they're not supposed to do, and we have to accept that the government's not supposed to do that. And sometimes the government does things that we don't like, but if it's in their power to do it, then you have to live with it until you can change the government. And it amazes me how very few people, when you say Constitution, they say, well, yeah, there are going to be it's a system of wins and losses. There are some things in our personal philosophies that we'd like government to do or not do, but government's supposed to do what it's supposed to do according to the blueprint. the blueprint only, and that is the Constitution.
Well, a lot of people ask those types of questions. I get them asked all the time, states' right type of issue or even a local municipality type of issue. And there are a couple things. Number one, I don't believe it's just good enough to punt on the issue and say, well, hey, I'm Constitution first, go talk to someone else. Because I think there are things I can do, but I make it very clear. You don't want me to legislate the solution for you. What you want is you want me to try to get off the back of those local legislators so that they can be effective at getting that job done for you in the first place, so that you wouldn't have to call me for that. And
that is a good answer, by the way.
A lot easier.
That is a super duper answer. You want me out of the way of your county. You don't want me on top of your county. Trust me. I like that. That's a good one. Now I read your bio, and I don't know if you're comfortable addressing this, because it would be, most people would understand that if somebody who grew up impoverished, whose family at a time was homeless, was open-minded to more wealth redistribution, more big government, more entitlement programs, you've lived through all of that and came out the other side not in favor of those things. Am I right?
Oh, yeah, you are right. I had a very good example of a mom. When people read my bio, it generally gets me a lot of opportunity to reach across the aisle, reach independence, because they go, wait a second, this isn't a traditional, quote-unquote silver spoon Republican. This guy did grow up homeless. Man, this guy was homeless his senior year in high school and was still valedictorian and elected a Washington State Scholar. And the reason why that came into being was because of the example my mom set. I can remember an iconic moment in my life. People might think it's cliche, but I remember sitting at the bus stop in the snow, and my feet are freezing. I've got holes in my shoes, and I'm looking across looking at kids that are standing at the bus stop with me wearing Nike Air Jordans, and they're on welfare. They're living in the same projects that I was living in. And I remember I came home that night, and I got taught a lesson by my mom, and it has stuck with me. It stuck with my brother, and that lesson was, hey, we're going to work for what we have. We're going to earn it. We don't want a handout. And, Jesse, this is going to be the key to success in your life. If you go out and you work hard for it, you can achieve anything. And, I remember, thinking about that, and, I made a big decision in my life that I was going to go work for it. So I studied real hard and got good grades. And my brother ultimately followed the same path and now I can sit here and I can tell you that with a conviction in my heart that is hard to match on the left side, because I actually have lived it, that I can walk back down into the projects that I grew up in, and I can say, listen, there is a better way. My life has been blessed immensely, and I have far more opportunity in my life because of working hard for it than what you followed suit with by following your parents on welfare. A lot of these kids are taught, and a lot of local or even national politicians try to encourage them to say, hey, it's okay, you can stay on welfare, don't worry about it, we're going to take care of you. And that never leads to anything great. My peers that I grew up with still are wearing Nike Air Jordans, but they're still on welfare. And I can tell you right now that a lot of providence being involved in my life too. I have a career. My kids will never know the want that I grew up with. They'll never know the stress of wondering where they're going to lay their head at night or where they're going to get their next meal, because I worked hard. And those lessons that my mom taught about personal responsibility and working for what you have blessed me to no end. And I intend to share that with a lot of people and actually go back down and provide real solutions for them.
The website is sorry.
Oh, sure.
Oh, the website is jesseyoungforcongress.com. It would be so easy for somebody to be apathetic, to fall into a trap of drugs and crime and behaviors that just that seemingly are going to make your life better for the short term, but end up making your life worse in the long term, and certainly harder to get out of it, if you even want to get out of it at all. I mean, if there's no incentive. But you've seemed to, we always talk about these Republicans always say, pull yourself up from the bootstraps, and then liberals say, wow, come on, that's some fantasy of yours, and here you are, somebody who has lived it.
Well, it's very interesting. I can tell you that my Democratic opponent is really hoping I don't make it out of the primary. We have a contested race of 7 people, and the big reason why is because he can't take the traditional route with me. I love it when I see very disingenuous claims and, oh, I've lived it, I've taken it on the chin, but they never truly have. When you can walk back down into the projects and really talk to somebody and say, hey, you know what? I remember being on that park. You remember when these apartments were closed or these were abandoned? You remember what you do? You know, the traditional saying goes this way. A traditional Democrat will come up and say, oh, you want to cut government spending? Why do you want to cut funding for the bus program that these people need, they rely upon? And I can't wait to have that debate in open public and say, why do you want somebody to ride the bus? Have you ever had to sit on a puke-stained seat to bring your groceries home? Have you ever had to sit next to someone that reeked of urine and that you were scared to sit next to? Have you ever had to take your life in hand and actually ride the bus that way? I have. People don't want to ride the bus. You know what I want? I want people to own a car. More importantly, in today's economy, I want them to be able to afford to put gas in the car. These are the types of things that are real, and when you can actually engage people that way and you're not scared to, you know, it's funny, in the metropolitan area of Tacoma, there are very few candidate signs at all in some of the project areas. Those areas have my signs littered throughout there because I actually care about those people. I'm not scared to go back down there. And, you know, I think people are finding it very refreshing that you've got a non-typical candidate that can espouse conservative principles and understand why I believe in them, because they blessed me to no end and gave me an opportunity that I want those that grew up in a similar situation to have. You know, I can tell you by way of motivation, the reason why I'm doing this, I'm putting my career on hold. I'm a software engineer by trade. I've consulted globally and nationally, but I'm putting all that on hold because one thing keeps me up at night. I have 5 children, 9 years of age and under. And every night I go to bed knowing that they'll never know the want that I grew up with. But if I were removed from the picture and they were stuck back down in that same environment just some 30-plus years later that I grew up in, I'm not certain that the opportunity is there for them to rise up out of it now. And it's personal to me, and I want to make a difference that way, and I want to lead with solutions.
Well, I looked at your website, and I see that you are pro-Second Amendment. You're strong on energy. You're strong on the military. And under the headline, free market and job creation, you write, the free market works, and we can use it to distinguish ourselves from the rest of the world. The invisible hand that incentivizes individuals to better themselves by providing needed and useful goods and services to others was clearly understood by the Founding Fathers. And it's funny that, again, when you look at the unemployment rate, and you look at people who want to work and can't work, and you look at the Democrats who almost use that as an excuse for more spending, not lower taxes, especially when we have enormous amounts of debt and deficit spending that is just piling up. It's amazing somebody with your background who's been there. You want to talk about the ills of the buses, you should come to New York City here and ride the subway. I think you'd find it pretty interesting that with your background, and again, it would not be a surprise, and I don't think anybody would think less of you if you said, I've been poor and it sucks and the government could do more. You're saying on your campaign website that the problem is the government taking too much out of the private sector and stifling the job creation that would allow people who've experienced what you've experienced to be able to get that job and buy themselves an automobile.
Absolutely. You know, Andrew, believe it or not, I actually grew up despising Ronald Reagan. You know, what I was taught, not from my mom, but more from either the school environment that I was in public schools, or just generally the media, the general thought that was always implanted in my mind was the reason that I was poor was because Ronald Reagan favored the rich, and he was taking that opportunity away from me and the kids that I grew up with and my parents, and giving it to all these wealthy people. And you know, when you grow up that way, yet see exemplified a different scenario, even in the environment that I grew up with, it eventually forms a dichotomy that you have to reconcile. And you know, once I got out of college, you know, actually, believe it or not, Notre Dame is generally a conservative college, but the economics department was pretty liberal. They had a lot of former Carter appointees running the economics department, and so I still had all the way through college a lot of liberal philosophy, certainly some Keynesian economic thought put into me. And it wasn't until right around 9/11 when I was trying to start my own consulting business. You know, was looking at starting a family. You know, the 9/11 actually happened, and we saw which side of the aisle really cared about the military. A number of things in my life, faith became more important to me. And
well, you can't do what you've done without some kind of faith.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I'll tell you, the communists have a saying, maybe you've heard this before, Andrew, but They say that the worst enemy to the Communist Party is a former communist. The reason why I think I'm a strong conservative now, and I don't think any Democrat wants to face me, is because I was a former liberal. I grew up so wholeheartedly believing that the right was the reason for my woes, my economic woes, the problems that my mom had in trying to make a living, that when I finally started to see the truth, I had to convince myself first. And after I convinced myself, that saying becomes very true. I know why I believe what I believe. I know why the conservative principles, why the free market, why the founding fathers were so wise in crafting the Constitution the way that they did. I know fundamentally why these are the real truth, and that's what makes me a very strong advocate for it, and why I'm willing to put it on my literature and lead with it.
Well, it's a good story, and I don't say that in a patronizing way. It is a good story. And you have solid thoughts on the economy, the military, Second Amendment, job creation, right there, available at jesseyoungforcongress.com. The primary is August 7th.